Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Chav Vav Amud Aleph, 26a of Meseches Megillah, and we're starting 2 lines from the bottom of the page, where the Gemara says Amar Rava. Now the Gemara is discussing, really from the Mishnah, the permissibility of selling various shuls and items in the shuls, or items of Kedusha in general, of holiness, and what you're allowed to do with the money, what you're not allowed to. And whether you can sell a shul in general. The Gemara differentiated between private shuls and public shuls, and said that private shuls it's possible to sell, public shuls it's not possible to sell. Now the Gemara says, Amar Rava lo shanu ela shalom machru shiva tovei ha'ir b'mayim anshei ha'ir. That which we said in the Mishnah, that if you sell a shul, so you can only buy something holier, or equal or holier, like a shul or something holier than that, which is basically things in the shul, the Aron Kodesh, the Sifrei Torah. That which we limit what you can buy with the money from the sale of the shul, that's only shalom machru shiva tovei b'mayim anshei. That's only if the shul wasn't sold by the 7 appointed, basically city council members, in the presence of the Anshei Ha'ir, in the presence of the townspeople. But if it was sold by the city council in the presence of the people of the city, afilu limishta bei shichra shaper dami, even to use the money to buy beer is permitted. In other words, apparently in those days, commonly you had a 7-person city council, and really I think in the halacha it doesn't have to be 7 people, it's just whoever is appointed to be generally in charge of matters. If they, and they have to have the right to sell the shul, but if they sell the shul in the presence of the people of the city, which I guess is a sign of the people's agreement, so then the Gemara says that is a complete transfer of the Kedusha of the building, I guess it goes in steps. At the time of the sale, this is at least how some understand it, at the time of the sale what happens? The holiness of the building, the Kedusha, gets transferred to the money. The money is now in place of the shul. Now the money, it's easier for that to lose its Kedusha, to lose its holiness, and therefore, after that, it's then the holiness of the money can sort of wane, and the money could be used to purchase anything after that. But this is at least how the Masas Binyamin, one of the early poskim, understood this, and so there's others understand that. No, the city council has the ability to downgrade the holiness of a shul, which seems like actually quite a novel idea to suggest that. But what it would be saying is there's not a permanence to this. The shul has a temporary holiness so long as it's being used for the purposes of a shul. And who has the right to revoke that? Specifically, the appointing members of the city. But once they sell it, so then the money can be used for whatever they wish. Now the nafkamina, the practical difference between these two explanations, whether it's just in general this council has the ability to revoke the holiness, or whether the money is transferred, the holiness is transferred to the money, and then it just gets washed away, that the holiness disperses or disappears. The difference is whether, in a case where you don't sell it, let's say the shul is just in disrepair, and you wanna, and the people of the town just wanna redesignate it for something else. So it wasn't sold, it wasn't transferred, the Kedusha, to something else. It's just you want to now transform it. So if the assembly, if the council has the ability to revoke the holiness of it, so then even in that case they should be able to. But if it's necessary to first transfer the holiness to the money and then it could kind of wane, so then it would only be in a case where it was sold that you could use it for whatever you want. Okay. Says the Gemara, Ravina Havale, top of the next page, at the end of the line, Ravina Havale Ahutila de Bekanista. Ravina had there was a certain mound where there was the ruins of a shul. And also, Kamed Rav Ashi, Ravina came to Rav Ashi, Amar Lein, he said to him, Mahu Mizra, what's the halacha for me to plant in this place? There used to be a shul, there's still the remains of a shul, but it's not a functioning shul. Am I allowed to plant here? So, Amar Lei, Rav Ashi said to him, Zil Zavne Mishiva Tuva Yair B'maiman Anshe Yair Vizara. Just go go buy it from the 7 city council members in front of the man of the city, and then you'll be able to plant, because then the kedusha of the shul, the holiness, will transfer to the money, and the remaining building or ruins will no longer have holiness, and you could plant there. Rami bar Abba Havaka Bani Be Kanista. Rami bar Abba was building a shul. Hava Ha'i Bet Kanista Atika. There was an old shul that was out of use. So Hava Ba'i L'Mistri L'Asuyi Livni. He wanted to destroy the old shul and use the bricks for his new shul that he was building. Livni Yukshuri, the bricks and the pillars. Mina. Vayuli L'Hasam, and bring them, he wanted to destroy them in the old shul and bring them L'Hasam to his new shul to use them in the building. Yaseh V'Kami Ba'ila. He sat and he wondered the following. Hadar of Chisda. He wondered regarding the teaching of Rav Chisda. The Amar of Chisda, that Rav Chisda said, Lo lister bekanista adabani bekanista achriti. You're not allowed to destroy one shul until you build another shul to replace it. So if you have a shul and you're ready you don't want to use it anymore, so you can't just destroy it. You first have to build another shul to replace it. So, Hasa Mishum Pshiusa, there the reason is we're worried about negligence. What are we worried about? It's okay to replace a shul, to destroy one, to build another one. Not to build it, to build, to put up a new building, let's say. But we're worried if you first destroy the first shul before you build the second one, you might never get to building the second shul. And then you won't have a shul anymore. So you first have to build the new shul before you destroy the old shul. So that's the teaching of Rav Chisda. So Rami bar Abba, he wondered the following. What about in my case, where it's not that I just want to destroy the shul. I want to destroy it to use it in order to build the new shul. Yeah, I understand if you're not going to use the old shul to build the new shul, so you might as well build the new shul first, and not destroy the old shul, because you might never get around to it, and this way you'll still have a shul. But if I want to use the old shul to build the new shul, so maybe I should be allowed to destroy the old shul first in order to build the new shul. That was his question. So Asal Kamei to Rav Papa, he came before Rav Papa, the Asarle, and he forbade it. The Kamei to Rav Huna, he came before Rav Huna, the Asarle, and he also forbade it. So that seems to be the ruling. Even if you're going to use the materials from the first shul to build the second shul, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to destroy the first shul until you've built the second shul. Amar Rava said, Hai Bekanista, with regards to shuls, Chalufa uzvuna shari, to trade it or to sell it is permitted. Again, with in a case where it's permitted to sell the shul, maybe it's the council people, like we said before, the council members can sell a shul. So you're allowed to trade it, to exchange this. Let's say you have a shul and you want to use a different building. So or I guess not even necessarily that you want to use the other building for a shul. Maybe that's the case. You are going to trade. You are going to trade. Yeah, seemingly it would land on the other building. You are going to trade the kedusha, basically the holiness of the shul, to a different building, leaving the first shul as an unholy building now that you could use for whatever you want. So that's permitted. Again, assuming you have the council people doing this. Uzmuna and selling also, like we said before, because in both of those cases, there's something for the kedusha, for the holiness of the shul, to be transferred to, either another building or to the money. But ugura umashkuna aser, but to rent out the shul, to use it for whatever, a gym or a party. Again, we're talking about the sanctuary itself, or as a mashkum, or to give it as a collateral. Again, that it would be used for something else. Aser, that is forbidden because the holiness didn't transfer to anything. It wasn't exchanged for anything. It wasn't sold. It was just renting out, or it was just giving as collateral. Right? So my time, what's the reason? Because it remains in its holiness, so you can't use it for something else. So it will be forbidden to rent it out for another purpose. The same is true for the bricks. Let's say the shul again is broken down, you want to use the bricks, so chalufinu v'zavuninu shari, to trade them or to sell them would be permitted, because the kedusha, the holiness, would transfer to whatever you traded it for, or to the money. But ozufinu aser, but to rent them out would be forbidden. Hangimili batikta. Now that which we said that you can't, that you have limitations in what you could do with the bricks, that's only an old shul, meaning a shul that actually had been used as a shul. Then the bricks acquire holiness, and you're limited in what you can do with them. But if it's a brand new shul that never got used, not just a brand new shul, there is no shul, we're just talking about bricks. If they are bricks that were made or acquired to use to build a shul, but you never actually built the shul, so then so then there's no problem, you can use the bricks for whatever you want, because they never actually became part of a shul. Now, even according to the opinion that says that just designating something is significant, and therefore you might say if they were designated to be used for a shul, they become like the shul and they get kedusha, they get holiness, and you cannot use them for whatever you want. The Gemara says, no, that's not true. When would we say that designating something makes a difference? That would be, for example, if one weaves a garment for a dead person, so for a corpse. So the halacha is that the shrouds or the clothing of a corpse that are used to bury someone are forbidding in Hana. Nobody's allowed to benefit from them, right? And that's true even if you just designate it. Once you designate these as burial shrouds, as something to cover the dead person, then you can't use them, you can't benefit from them anymore. So, but that's only where you wove the beged, you wove the garment already, you have a garment. Aval hacha, but here where you have the bricks, kitavi la'arig dami, that's more like you just spun the threads for the garment. The bricks are the material that you use to build the shul, to make the building for the shul. So the building has kedusha, but and once you designate a building as a shul, even if you never use it, so then I can understand that the bricks will have holiness. But the bricks themselves are just the material that will be used to create the building, which will be used to house prayer. So the bricks themselves are actually more similar to the threads that are used to weave a garment that are used for a dead person. So the garment, once it's woven and is designated for the dead, is forbidden to benefit from. But the threads, before they are used, it's too early a stage, and even if you designate them, that has no significance. And the same would be true for the bricks of the shul. The lekol adam, or nobody would say that designation makes a difference. Now, matana, what if they give the shul away as a gift? Or the bricks, let's say. So, is that similar to selling it, and it's permitting, and it loses its holiness? Or is it more similar to renting it out? So, pligi ba Rav Acha v'Ravina. Rav Acha and Ravina debated this. Chad asar v'chad shari. One said it's forbidden, and one said it's permitted. Manda asar, the one who said it's forbidden, b'hai tifka kedushasa, with this the holiness will go away, or some read b'mai tifka kedushasa, with what will the holiness go away? It didn't transfer to anything, you just gave it away as a gift. When you sell it, so the holiness transfers to the money. When you trade it, the holiness transfers to the other building, or whatever you trade it for. But when you give it away, the holiness doesn't transfer to anything. That's one opinion. B'chad shari, but another opinion allows it and says that no, the holiness does go away. Why? So, Umad Deshari, the one who allows it because he loved the havale hana mine lavayayiv. If there wasn't some benefit from giving it as a gift, he wouldn't have given it as a gift. So there's some exchange that takes place when you give a gift. There's something that you get in return, some kind of benefit. It may be a future benefit, a player to be named, but you're going to get something out of it, and that's where we can say the kedusha goes. That is the reasoning of the opinion that allows it. So hadar havale matana kizvini. Then the gift becomes like a sale. It's like a sale. It's exchanged for something. It's exchanged for some kind of benefit, and therefore it's permitted. Okay, now the Gemara shifts into a new discussion, which is the requirements of burial of various items. So it says, Tana Rabbi, the rabbis taught, Tashmishe mitzvah nizrakin. So the items that are used for a mitzvah, they can be thrown away. You don't have to, maybe we throw them away respectfully, but they don't have to be buried. They don't need geniza. But tashmishe kedusha nignazin. But those things that are supporting, are protecting, or honoring items of kedusha, of holiness, so those, not just do the holy items need to be nignaz, but they need to be buried, but even the tashmisha kedusha, those things that assist them, that protect them. Ve'eluhen tashmisha mitzvah. So here are some examples of tashmisha mitzvah, items for a mitzvah, which do not need to be buried. Sukkah. You have a sukkah, you have schach. You don't have to bury the schach. Lulav, shofar, tzitzis. All of these things do not require geniza. They are mitzvah items, but they are not holy per se. They're not items of kedusha. Again, we recommend respectful disposal, but they don't require geniza. They don't require burial. Ve'eluhen tashmisha kedusha. But these are the things that are mishamesh, that assist items of kedusha, of holiness. So, as we'll see in a moment, items of holiness are going to be things like sifrei Torah, tefillin, mezuzos, other types of svarim, like at least like sifrei neviim. So here are some examples of tashmisha kedusha. Duluskimei svarim, the bag to keep Svarim. And by Svarim we mean scrolls here. We mean Torah scrolls and perhaps other books of Tanakh scrolls. Tefillin and mezuzahs. Also bags for storing the scrolls of tefillin and mezuzahs. V'tik shel sefer Torah, or a box for a Torah. V'nartik shel tefillin, and a box for storing tefillin, or tzosei, and their straps. So all these things which you use to keep either Torah scrolls, Tanakh scrolls, or tefillin, mezuzahs. So those are Tashmish Kedusha, and they would need to be nignaz. They would need to be buried. Amar Rava said, Meireish Hava Amina, originally I said, Hai kurse tashmish tashmishu. The bima, the amud, the box that you read the Sefer Torah on, you read the Torah on, I thought that it's a tashmish of tashmish. It's a secondary support of the Torah. Vishari, and therefore it's permitted, it doesn't need to be buried. Because the bima usually has a cover. So the Torah doesn't go directly on the wooden bima, it goes onto the cover which is on the bima. So the bima itself is just tashmish to tashmish. It's supporting that which is itself supporting the Torah on. But when I saw that sometimes actually they put the Torah directly on the wooden bima without any kind of covering, so Amina, I said Tashmish Kedusha. Actually, the bima should be considered Tashmish Kedusha. It directly services the Sefer Torah, and therefore the bima would require Geniza, V'asr, and it's Asr. V'amar Rava, and Rava said, Meireish Hava Amina, originally I thought to say Hai Prisa Tashmish to Tashmishu. The curtain that we put around the Aron, I think he would mean basically like we have a parochas, we have a curtain in front of the Aron, in front of the Ark. So I thought that was Tashmish of Tashmish. There's a secondary servicing of the Sifrei Torah, because there's usually a door on the Aron Kodesh, that's the protected box, and or the more direct honoring of the Torah, and the curtain is secondary. But when I saw that sometimes they take it down and they fold it up and they use it to put a Torah on, Amina Tashmish Kedusha. I said actually the curtain is Tashmish Kedusha, the Asr, and therefore it would be Asr to dispose of it. You have to bigonez it, you have to bury it. Ve'amar Rava, and Rava said further, Hai tevusa de irfat. If you have an Aron Kodesh that's falling apart, so, right, you can imagine not like our built-in Aron Kodesh, but you often have just a box that you keep a Torah in. So let's say it's falling apart. So what can you do with an Aron Kodesh that's falling apart? So mi'avda teva zutrasi shari. To make a smaller Aron Kodesh, that would be permitted. But kursaya asr, but to make a bima is forbidden, because a Aron Kodesh, an ark, has a higher level of holiness than a bima, so you cannot use the wood of an Aron Kodesh to make a bima to place the Sifrei Torah on. Ve'amar Rava, and Rava said, Hai prisa de bala, if the curtain of an Aron Kodesh starts to tatter, Lemivde prisa lesifri shari. If you want to make it into the cover of a Sefer Torah, that's permitted. That's an upgrade. To go from a curtain of an Aron Kodesh to a covering of a Sefer Torah, that is an upgrade, and that you'd be allowed to do. That's elevating its holiness. L'chumshin aser. But if you have a chumash, now a chumash in this case means the word chumash comes from the word chamesh, which is five books of the Torah. A chumash is one of the five in this, and it doesn't mean a printed book like we have. It means a scroll that's only one of the five chumashim. So it's a scroll of Bereshis or a scroll of Devarim. So that doesn't have the same level of holiness as a complete Sefer Torah. And to take the curtain of the Aron Kodesh, which services full-on Sifrei Torah, and use it to cover just an individual chumash would be a downgrade in holiness, and you would not be allowed to do that. Ve'amar Rava, and Rava said further, Hanizvili de chumshi, those holders of chumashim, some kind of cover of a chumash, again, which is a one scroll, a one chumash, only one book of the 5 books chumash. So those coverings become contrary to Sifri, as well as a box for a Sefer Torah. Tashmish Kedusha, those are considered Tashmish Kedusha, servicing holy items, V'nignazim, and they need to be buried. Pshita, that's obvious. So Ma'odazema, what would you have said? Hangi lav lechavod avidan linturi ba'alma avidi. You'd say no. Those are there for protection. They're not there for honor. You might have thought to say only things that are there for honor are considered tashmishe kedusha, but things that are just there for protection are not. Kamash Malan came Rava and said, no, even things for protection are considered tashmishe kedusha, either because they just are, or because even if they're there for protection, that's also an honor to these items. Harubei knista diyudai Romai, there was a shul that belonged to the Roman Jews. Now, Rava said we don't mean that it was in Rome, we mean Roman Jews who returned to Babylonia and set up a shul in Mechuzah. There was a Jewish Roman shul in Mechuzah, and it opened to a room where there was a dead person, or maybe regularly they would put dead people in this room. It was a morgue or something, and the shul had a direct opening, a doorway that opened to this place that had the dead body. Now that presented a problem for the Kohanim to enter the shul, because the Tumah, Kohanim are not allowed to come under the same roof as a dead body. So Vavubo Kohanim Lamel Utzlui Hasam, and there were Kohanim who wanted to go daven there. So Asu Amru Leilu Rava, they came and told Rava about this problem. Rava was the Rashiva, the Rav of the city of Mechuzah. So Amar Lahu, he said to them, Dalu Tevusa Usvua, take the Aron Kodesh and put it in the doorway to block the doorway. Because the Aron Kodesh is a wooden vessel that's not meant to be moved, although he's telling them to move, but it's not meant to be moved. And the halacha is that a wooden vessel that's not meant to be moved is not mekabel tumah, cannot become tameh. Now, in order to block the tumah from traveling from one room to the other, you have to put something that's not mekabel tumah, that can't become tameh. You can't use something that could become tameh to be chotzetz, to interrupt, to block tumah from traveling. It doesn't work. So it specifically had to be something. It could have been a door, but I guess they didn't have that option. So it had to be something that was not mekabel tumah. His suggestion was take the Aron Kodesh, because a wooden item that's not meant to be moved is not mekabel tumah. So it doesn't receive tumah, it doesn't receive spiritual impurity, and it blocks the tumah from traveling through. But the Rabbanan said back to Rava, but there's sometimes that you do move the Aron Kodesh, or they move their Aron Kodesh, kimanach Sefer Torah, even when there's a Sefer Torah inside. And therefore it's something that gets moved not only when it's full and when it's empty, and something that gets moved both full and empty is considered something that you move. And therefore it's not a kliyet asu anachas, it's not just a wooden vessel that rests, it's a wooden vessel that moves. And therefore it cannot block the tumah, because it could become tameh. So Rabbi said, if that's the case, then there's no option. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know a way to block the tumah from traveling, and I don't know a way to allow the Kohanim to go and daven there. Again, it seems like putting up a door was not an option. Amar Mar Zutra said, Matpechos svarim shabalu, the cloths that you use to wrap Sifrei Torah, if those cloths become withered and tattered, you're allowed to use them to create burial shrouds for a meis mitzvah, for a dead person who needs it, who doesn't have anyone to attend to his needs, or hers. Vizui genisasan, and that is the genisa, that is the burial. So we said all of these tashmishe kedusha, these things that service, that's the word I was probably looking for the whole time, that service holy items, so they need to be buried. well, if there's a way to bury it and use it to honor a mace, that you get two birds with one stone. So the matbechos, the cloths that they used to wrap Sifrei Torah, when they start to, we don't really have this, but they would wrap their Sfarim in cloth to protect them. So those cloths, when they start to tatter, they can be used for burial shrouds, and that both for a mace mitzvah, for a dead person in need, that both helps the dead person and it also buries them at the same time, buries the item. V'amar Rav and Rabba said, Sefer Torah shebala gonzing oso etzel tamid chacham. If you have a Sefer Torah that begins to wither, to tatter, that's no longer in disrepair, can't be used anymore, so you should bury it next to a Torah scholar. V'afilu shona halachos, and it doesn't have to be the greatest Torah scholar, even if he just learns the halachos, which Rashi says means like the Mishnah, even if he doesn't know the Gemara, that suffices. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov b'kli cheres. And Rav Acha bar Yaakov adds it should be buried in a earthenware vessel that protects it. Shenemar, as it says, quotes a pasuk in Yirmiyah, Nesatem b'kli cheres l'man yamdu yamim rabim, where Yirmiyah instructed people to write these contracts and hide them in about their fields and hide them in kli cheres in order that in earthenware vessels to protect them. So it seems that even though we're burying the scrolls of the Sefer Torah, at the same time we want to protect them, and so they're to be placed in a kli cheres, in an earthenware vessel, and buried that way. Okay, we will resume from here next time.